here we are. This is Sex Love Psychedelics, and I'm your host, Dr. Kat, bringing you psychosexual conversations that will leave you intellectually turned on and hungry for more. So when we're talking about, these states of feeling sensual and these states of feeling turned on, I'm turning myself on right now.
I know. I love it. I'm like, yeah.
Like we're in a podcast right now. But like, I think there can be a shutdown happen, or like this avoidance of that altogether, because there can be an association that somebody has to then give sex, or they have to put it somewhere. Or, this means that I might be a sex craved person. So they stop themselves in these experiences. How would you describe to somebody like the importance of being like learning to turn yourself on, or being sensual? And
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So I find that getting rooted in your intention of why you want to explore this to begin with is super important. And it's super, and I think a beautiful thing as well is like you can begin to start your sensual journey and nobody else be around you. And it doesn't need to be something that needs to be kind of shared, especially in the beginning, if that's still a layer that you're getting into. If you're feeling that level of resistance, if I do this, I'm taking up too much space, or, I'm being slutty, or I'm kind of looking for attention, then another area of connecting to your sensuality would be like, let's reflect on that. Like, how does that feel? You not wanting to take up space, or you associating your sensuality with your sexuality. That has a sensorial palette in and of itself. And exploring your sensuality in a more movement way, like I saw you kind of like undulating through your spine. There's ways to explore sensual movement that aren't pretty or performative.
yeah.
And a beautiful way to tap into it. I mean, and this is how I start the majority of my practices, is like just kind of sending my ear to my shoulder and like feeling the stretch in your body. That is sensual movement. That is you automatically exploring your sensuality. It doesn't need to be how exotic dancers are doing it, or how I'm doing it, or how you see it. Like, it, to me, true sensuality and starting your sensual journey is tuning into your five senses. And you can literally be doing that sitting down. And then when it comes to the movement aspect, or exploring your sensuality of what's happening underneath the skin, it's like literally just gaining awareness of how it feels when you move your body in a particular position, or when a certain emotion comes up on any side of the spectrum, where in the body are you feeling it? So I don't subscribe or feel like sensuality is, again, just this seductive thing. It can be, it's beautiful, it's enticing, I love it. True sensuality is literally just being in your body, anchoring yourself in your body. And you are you're a sexual person. We have sexual organs. We came here from sex. We have nerve endings that provide us these really throbbing, beautiful sensations. And there's so much more of your eroticism to explore, and so much more of your body to explore, that isn't associated with the sexual energetics that we've been taught it is.
Yeah. I just did a podcast with Susanna Weiss, and we got into this conversation around like the performative concept or conditioning that we've had around sensuality. Like, where did that even come from? It's as if we have this male gaze in our bedroom when nobody else is there. And we feel like it has to look this way, but it's like that prevents us from, like this morning, I was in my sweats and it's just like moving awkward, la la la. But it felt so good, I was like, oh, I felt that release. Exactly what you're talking about.
I love that you said it, because I haven't thought about that in a long time, and it's so true. When I first got into, and it'll creep up every once in a while, but I really want to touch back on, even when nobody's watching, we're performing.
Yeah.
And that is a really interesting piece to begin to untangle. There's a practice that I love to do. I call it the art of being ugly. And it's giving yourself 1 to 5 to however long you want to do it, and making the ugliest shape. Are people going to see the video? Okay. So like making like the ugliest shapes with your body. You're like making really ugly faces and really ugly noises, and just seeing what that's like letting, even in the privacy of yourself, like giving yourself permission to explore in two different ways, so many different ways. Now that I'm thinking aloud. One, our body has so much range of motion and our muscles can do so much to where it's like, why don't we just take the time to explore? 9 times out of 10, this is what my face looks like. But there's so much range that my body can do or my face can do that I'm like, why am I not, even now, I'm like, why don't I exercise these muscles more? Not to like wash out or to lift the face, but to just actually feel like, how can we connect to all the muscles underneath the skin? And then how can we begin to kind of notice that narrative that comes up of like, oh my God, this is really ugly. Or I've had, kind of to relate it to bondage, I'll put, women in certain ties and I'll, kind of twist their bodies in certain ways and they'll get rolled naturally because that's what a belly does. And, and they'll express, afterwards, I hear this often, like, oh, I remember when you put me in that position, like, I noticed this thought come in of like, oh my God, Jaqueline's going to see my rolls. She's going to think X, Y, Z. And of course, that's not what I'm thinking, but it's interesting that it's like, oh, they're almost like projecting that thought of what they're really thinking about themselves. And so how do we begin to just let go of this? We need to be perfect all the time.
Yeah. 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 And to really open up. Yeah. I love that. To open up these muscles really opens up the armor of the body, like the frozen fascia, because we've just been habituating these patterns or these ways of expressing, or our fucking jaw. Like, how many women complain about jaw pain, including
literally,
I don't, and it's like jaw is the silent witness to everything we haven't said, everything that we haven't expressed, everything we haven't shown in our face.
Yeah. There's so many things. So yeah, sensuality, sensual practices doesn't need to be this pretty thing. Like, yeah, at least externally. It's really just how many different things can you feel underneath and beyond the skin.
Well, that was fun. Thanks for tuning in, lovers. And if you want to experience more ecstasy and sexual liberation, head over to sexlovepsychedelics.com and learn about how you can join me for any one of my online or live events. And while you're there, grab my free guide on sex and psychedelics. Remember, this podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Please contact your healthcare provider and local law before pursuing any of the products or psychedelics discussed. And one final note here. I make this show specifically for you. If you're loving the show, then be sure to leave me a review in iTunes or Spotify to let me know. Happy to be here and happy to serve. I'll see you next time on Sex Love Psychedelics.